Hello everybody, Jonathan here with another trick weapon, in that it's not a weapon at all, it's another piece of wood. We did have the wooden G11 the other week. This is more of a weapon, I suppose, than the G11 was, insofar as it has, well, it has a metal barrel, which is more than that thing had. Well, there's a metal tube running through it, but it wasn't really a barrel. This is more of a barrel. It's not a real barrel though. And this is a training piece of kit. So it's not for actually killing with, but it's for training you to learn how to kill with the real thing. So I'll explain all that very shortly. Before I do that, I need to complete the look of this thing. If you're following along on social media, you'll have seen the silhouette in this configuration and hopefully been bamboozled. But if we grab this bit of kit, perhaps we should have shown you a picture of this instead. But so what looks like a front sight, sort of is like a front sight on a musket would have been, because there's a bayonet attachment. The rubber on this has split. Very sadly, I'm going to be gentle and try not to split it any further. In fact, I'll give it a little bit of an assist on. So it slides on under spring pressure and turns, and it locks back forward again. So like a traditional socket bayonet. And I think pretty quickly you can intuitively grasp what this thing is. And if I do this, you've probably figured it out. Training, fake bayonet type thing with a plunger. That's right, it's for bayonet, what they used to call bayonet fencing, certainly in the British Army. So you can happily poke other people potentially, and certainly in inanimate objects you don't want to damage all day long, and it won't be damaged. There's a rubber ferrule on there like a walking stick, although it's very hard at this point on this one, but it is rubber. And of course the spring plunger there. So it's purely for training people how to do the most basic bayonet fencing, which of course is thrust, twist, withdraw. And I'm clearly not trained in that because I've already messed it up. But they didn't just make it a stick. They could have made it like a sort of mop handle with this on the end. They made it look like a rifle. What rifle? Well, there's a little bit of mystery over this. Obviously the big curved wooden block here makes it look like a bit like an AK, but the rest of it is extremely not AK. I suppose the buttstock is maybe somewhat close, but it has no pistol grip notably, and it has this swell here, and then a sort of, you know, full-length wooden stock that's just not present on an AK, obviously. Much more SKS. So, putting all that together, we find the most common theory for these, and the sling is of a pattern that would back that up, that this is East German. So there's quite a bit of mystery about these when they first appeared on the sort of surplus militaria market some years ago. Most people, I think, pretty quickly decided that they were East German. Either they had some sort of intelligence on that not everyone did, or they based it on the sling, which is indicative of that. But yeah, long story short, it definitely is East German, because people have found training footage, black and white training footage from I think the 60s. We'll see if we can find that for you and incorporate it, that shows exactly this pattern of training rifle being used. And not just for on the rifle stabby, but removing the fake bayonet and actually using it in like offensive knife fighting practice as well.
Perfect. This,
of course, does not resemble an AK bayonet or an SKS bayonet for that matter. It's entirely its own thing. But it has a handle with this ribbed rubber covering here, and I guess you're supposed to just use your imagination, whereas the rifle portion is very much designed to emulate a service rifle. And of course, because you don't, we'll just put this back on. Because even with an AK, you're supposed to grasp the buttstock and not bayonet with the pistol grip, it doesn't really matter whether or not there's a pistol grip on here, but it does matter whether or not you're working around this great big protuberance here. So if they'd left that off, recruits that had learned to bayonet using essentially an SKS mock-up would struggle with the magazine of the AK getting in the way. I think that's the logic. Quite why it's so incredibly thick, I don't quite know. One person I saw online had claimed that they'd seen a version of this with a short magazine mock-up that made it more like an SKS. The way the sling is attached is again leans toward more of an SKS, but really, in detail, it's not massively SKS. It's just the fact that it's lacking a pistol grip and it has a full-length wooden stock, or nearly a full-length wooden stock, that makes us think SKS. So, what about the real weapons that this is designed to, or weapon that this is designed to emulate? I'm just going to interrupt myself there, just to make a small, brief plea. Like a lot of channels, we notice that a lot of people who watch and hopefully enjoy our content do not, or are not currently subscribed to the channel. It really does help us out if you not only like the video, but subscribe to the channel. And if you like what you're seeing here, you're sure to like what we're going to do next week and for the foreseeable future. Back to other me. Right, so we've added a real German MPi-K AK Type 3, if you will, copy. So these were, I think, sort of classified in 1957, manufactured from 1958, and relatively quickly replaced by the MPi-KM, the stamped receiver AKM equivalent. So relatively short-lived. But since the MPi-KM had plastic furniture, I've gone with the early rifle, and also this idea that maybe these originated with East German SKS rifles. I thought it made sense to go with this one. Although, by the way, as far as I know, the East German SKS, which wasn't much manufactured and potentially not much used either, didn't come into service until the same time as the AK variant. So it's not like they had the SKS, made this with a short mag or no mag for bayonet training, and then went, oh, now we've changed rifle, we'll have to add this to the... It's not as linear as that. It's not as straightforward as that. But it does make sense that if they thought they were introducing AK and SKS alongside each other, which of course was the original plan for the Soviet Union before they realized the AK was best for everything, then it would make sense that they would come up with something that was modular in the sense that it could serve as an SKS surrogate with this off. And if you just slap that on there, you've got one that will work for your AK-armed troops. That's the best that I can surmise. So just a quick look at a genuine DDR, as I say, type 3, the collector terminology, AK, so the fully developed milled receiver AK, dubbed MPi-K. With, of course, the bayonet. That's the critical bit of this. So we'll pop off the scabbard, metal scabbard on this original AK pattern bayonet. So you can see, I think, pretty good match for overall length with the bayonet fitted, except that to really match it has to... It's still not quite the right length. So part of me wonders if you're training your troops with a with something that's effectively about sort of 4 inches or so longer than your actual weapon you're going to be issued with the bayonet fitted, if they might think they have more reach than they actually do when it comes to the thrust. But hey, so it's perhaps less of a match than I thought it would be. And of course, the means of attaching the bayonet. This is not training you to operate the weapon. That's not how the bayonet looks, functions, or attaches on the real rifle. So the AK bayonet, so the original pattern AK bayonet, you can spot the East German variety, by the way, with these black grip scales. The Soviet version is that plum, so-called Bakelite type colour. But otherwise it's the same pattern. And this attaches with this really very stiff and awkward to operate, impossible with gloves on actually, pull tab latch thing. So you pull that out and then push up to take this off. I'm not even going to attempt it on camera because I'll embarrass myself. And the whole point of this is we're trying to replicate the weapon with the bayonet fitted. So pretty starkly different from the from the training version. And you can see how the sling attaches here. So the sling on this is not, again, not to replicate the service weapon, it's to just let them sling it and carry it like it's a weapon for convenience and good practice. The AK sling does not attach at all in the same way. This is, so we have our, just to remind, or show you, there's a pivoting loop at the rear, and there is a fixed loop at the front just behind, or attached under the gas block on the AK. So the sling is attached in a completely different way. Another quick jump to another gun, except it's, again, not a real gun. But just in case any of you were thinking, oh, that's very clever 60s technology for simulating bayonet fighting, it's actually not very clever, because at least as far back as the 1850s, we have the same thing. And in fact, we have a whole series of these. These are called fencing muskets. And we have a Martini Henry one. We have a Longley Enfield one. We have several others. We have some with cup guards built into them, like a sword, to protect your hands, because you're expected to really go at it with these sort of less lethal bayonets. I've chosen this one simply because it's the oldest one that was to hand, and it is in fact a sealed pattern. So those of you who aren't familiar with the sealed pattern system, for every piece of equipment used by the British military, there was at least one example with a literal royal seal of approval. Not always royal, but implied royal seal of approval. The Master General of the Ordnance seal is usually on there. In fact, that's what this one is. I'll try and show you that, actually. So the squarish one there is the really important one, I think, because that is the seal of the Master General of the Ordnance, which was an actual job until 2013. Kind of a shame that they got rid of it. So that's the person that's supposed to oversee the standardization of arms, basically. Now that extended to all sorts of other kit. In fact, the sealed pattern, the pattern room, as it were, for clothing and equipment is still going, unlike the one for arms. We have the collection that it had, but its role is long since defunct. Anyway, because this is the earliest one, modelling the pattern 1853 Enfield rifle, or rifle musket, or rifled musket, doesn't really matter which. It has all that's, well, furniture, nicely made stock, even the hammer, although it's screwed in place so that it can't move. The trigger guard, the butt plate, you know, it's much closer to the real P53 than this pseudo AK that's the focus of this episode. Now, what that means, this being the earliest form, it means that it has a P53 bayonet replicating plunger bayonet system. That was quite a mouthful. So instead of the one that coincides with the bore and sort of reciprocates in and out of what would be the bore if it had one, as on most of our other examples of fencing muskets, this one has this offset sliding, see the slot here. The spring is gone on this one, unfortunately, so as I push it back, it will stay where I push it. I won't force it, it's a little bit reluctant, but you can see it does slide all the way down to here. So it retracts to its full length for obvious reasons, to simulate the whole bayonet going all the way into your opponent. And it doesn't have the nice rubber stopper on the end, it has just a swollen tip, so that if you get caught by it, it won't kill you, it'll just really, really hurt, maybe take your eye out, that sort of thing. Now, they did wear protective equipment when they were fencing with these things. They're actually specified as fencing musket gymnasium, so they were doing this bayonet training in an indoor setting for the most part, as I understand it. But there's a lot of research could be done on these. I know at least one researcher that's interested in doing something on them, so they almost deserve their own episode. I just wanted to show you that this is not a new idea. Now, of course, in fact, this isn't the beginning of the fencing musket story. It's kind of the end, because I don't know of any later plunger-style fencing or gymnasium muskets, rifles, whatever, after this, 1960s, 1970s. Don't know when they stopped actually using them, but presumably with the merger, the remerger of the two Germanys in 1990, might presumably be when they stopped, because they're standardizing on a different rifle. So they must have stayed in stores for a very long time, though, because I don't think they made it into the surplus market for quite a few years after that. But if you know more, if you've got one, there are variations, I understand. Please do let us know in the comments what you've got. If you know anything more that we don't about these, I've yet to actually catalogue this properly, so it'd be good to know new information as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, do check out our website, our social media outlets that we have, our 3 physical museums, of course, if you're in the UK at any point. Speaking of which, we do have a new exhibition that's just opening called Reloaded. Lots of mainly decorated firearms, some pretty fascinating stuff in there. Gold-plated Kalashnikov, beautiful Art Deco baby Browning pistol, all sorts of things for you to check out there. Please do come and see that.